wanted to grab my water.
Okay. All right. Good evening, everyone. My name is Javondelyn Dunnigan, owner of JMD Defense, LLC, and I want to welcome everyone to our Concealed Carry Q&A webinar. So we are talking tonight to attorney Maria M. Barlow, and she is going to talk to us about some of the hot topics related to concealed carry, some of the types of gun cases that she represents. And of course, we're going to allow you all to ask questions in the chat. Please refrain from commenting in the chat every time she makes a statement about one of the questions. We just want your questions in the chat. And the goal is to get to all of the questions during this hour. So we have a lot of good information to share with you, and let's just get started. So Maria, why don't you introduce yourself and tell our audience a little bit about you and your background.
So I'm attorney. Thank you so much for having me, Javondelyn. Always a pleasure to work with you and your gun club. And anybody else who's interested in concealed carry. So I really appreciate you reaching out to me and continuing to let me update your members and your potential members on what's going on in the world of concealed carry in Illinois. So I'm attorney Maria Barlow. I am a private practice practitioner. My office is at 83rd and Stony Island. I proudly place my office on the south side so we can have access to the same quality services that are oftentimes downtown and in the suburbs. I practice in areas of family law, estate planning, and concealed carry. And people always ask, like, how are you doing concealed carry? Because I am a proponent of concealed carry. I tell anybody that's around me, you absolutely should conceal carry, because guess what? Everybody else is, whether they can do so legally or not. I'm always happy to educate people on concealed carry. So again, I just thank Javondelyn for having me here, and hopefully I can answer some questions for you all tonight that can help you make the decision to conceal carry or not. And I do want to tell you guys, this is not the class where you will receive your concealed carry license. This is a Q&A. If you are looking to get your concealed carry license after this class, or you need further information, definitely reach out to me or Javondelyn, because she offers those classes. So you definitely want to make sure that after you hear some of the things you need to know tonight, you can make the decision to conceal and carry.
All right. Thanks, Maria. So I know that you represent a wide variety of gun cases and individuals. And so, give us an idea of what kinds of typical gun cases you represent.
So nowadays, I try to, for the most part, represent just concealed carry holders. I have, though, historically, and on occasion, if the facts sound right, I may represent somebody that is charged with what people call a UUW, that's an unauthorized usable weapon. And sometimes I may get a case where someone is charged with reckless discharge of a firearm. And those people sometimes are lawfully carrying or concealed carry holders or FOID holders, and they've discharged their firearm in a manner that they should not have done so. So I do have a wide variety of cases that I take from time to time, but I don't take every gun case because sometimes the facts aren't right. And for me, I have to be able to sleep at night, and I have to know the person that I'm going to defend is not going to be coming to rob my house or your house when I finish their case. So I don't take every gun case. I try to cherry pick them when I do.
So that's interesting. Can you give us like an example of a typical gun case, and then walk us through when you get that phone call all the way to maybe the end and how a case was adjudicated?
Okay, so cases of reckless discharge, perhaps someone has pulled their firearms but the most common one that I see, someone has pulled their firearm and they shot in the air as a scare. They wanted to warn the person. Normally, you're going to be taken in for that, and you are going to definitely be charged with reckless discharge of a firearm or something in that neighborhood of discharging your firearm. It is normally not a good practice to fire a warning shot, especially not in the air. I used to tell people, if you're going to pull, if you're going to draw, make sure that you're doing it appropriately. And then more likely than not, if you're drawing, you're probably firing, but make sure it's appropriate circumstances. I'm not sure where the whole warning shot concept comes from, but that's often where I see people getting charged with that on the reckless discharge of a firearm. or something similar to that charge. As far as the UUW, the unauthorized use of a weapon, that usually happens when someone does not have their concealed carry, or they don't have their FOID and they have the car. If you don't have your concealed carry in your car, your firearm is in your vehicle, and the police search your vehicle or it's otherwise in plain sight, they're going to charge you with unauthorized use of a firearm. So the most common question I get, people are like, but I wasn't using it. And which is fine. You have it in your car. It's not broken down. You're not properly carrying it. So they are going to charge you. You know, there are instances at which those cases can be beat or dismissed or won, however you want to categorize it. You know, when police have illegally searched your car, and that happens. You know, that happens. Sometimes the police stop you and, you know, you don't know your rights. So they search your car, they find your gun, you don't have your concealed carry, or you don't have your concealed carry card on you and they claim they can't find it. So in the system, you know, they're going to take you into custody. They're going to charge you. That's just the way that it works. I've not, and I don't know every case, but the cases I've seen, if you are not properly carrying it, they charge you and they keep your firearm. So you want to be mindful of that. The last one is actually when someone is involved in a concealed carry shooting. I see this one, I see it more often in Chicagoland area in the summertime than any other time. I always tell people, if you pull your firearm, if you shoot somebody, if they're dead or alive, you're going to go into custody. Okay. There is no, hey, police, he beat me up, I shot him, she had a knife, I shot her. No, you're going to go into custody. You're going to go into the station. So it is always advisable that you not give a statement, even though it may seem like an appropriate circumstance that you pulled your firearm, that you fired your firearm. It's usually not in your best interest to give a statement because you might not be correct as to your assumption that you could have pulled or you could have fired your firearm. So I always tell people, look, if you pull it, if you shoot the person, you're going into police custody, you are charged just like any other person that they consider to be a criminal. So just like anybody else, you have the right to remain silent. You took a class. Guess what? The main thing you need to know is shut it. Don't say a word. Don't say a peep. It's not necessary. When you go into the station, the police are there to make an arrest. Okay, they're there to investigate. They're going to make an arrest if they think it's appropriate. There is no statement that you can make that can't be used against you. So don't give a statement. People always think, well, I'm going to say this or I'm going to say that. You don't know the one thing that they're looking for. If they have enough to arrest you, they don't need your statement to arrest you. If they don't have enough to arrest you, oftentimes it's your statement that helps them make that arrest. So it's very important that you don't make a statement, even if you think you're right, even if you think I'm 100% right, I should have shot this person. Why make a statement? You're not going to leave any quicker. Relax. Call your attorney, call your insurance, make sure that somebody's at the station assessing this situation for you to make sure that you get to leave when that clock's up, when that 48-hour investigation time is up. Because if not, you may find yourself sitting in the county a lot longer.
So Maria, you mentioned something about they will take your firearm. So I think a lot of times people have this misconception that they will shoot somebody, they'll get their firearm back, and that's really not the case. They take it for investigative purposes. Have you been successful in helping any clients to get their firearm retrieved from CPD or the arresting agent?
I have on some occasions, and it depends on the facts. I've had a situation where the police have taken my client's firearm, and unfortunately they retain me later. So now the police have their firearm, whatever has happened in the station has happened, and they come to me later. It's a little bit more difficult to get the firearm back when there is no charge that is against the person. Or if you don't know the specifics of who arrested you, your inventory information and things like that. So what I've learned is that some agencies like to play games. They like to tell you, oh, you got to have a court order, you have to have this, you have to have that. The problem with that is if you have rightfully shot your firearm and you've shot someone, you're not arrested. So you won't have a court order. You won't have a court case. You can't go into court and say, hey, judge, give me a court order. The judge is like, who are you and what are you talking about? How do I give you a court order for what I don't know what you're talking about? So it is a bit of a process to get your firearm back, especially if you're not charged. And unfortunately, what I've learned over time is that many police stations don't even know how to release a firearm to an individual. There are forms that they have to fill out. And because they're so used to collecting firearms that they never have to release, many officers are not very educated on how to release them. So the time that I had to go out to the station to help a client retrieve a firearm, I think it took me at least 8 hours to get, and a couple of trips over to get that firearm retrieved for that particular client, because they did not know what forms or how to release it. So I had to kind of go above the patrol officer, above the sergeant, into their desk sergeant in order to get my client's gun released.
So let me make sure I understand, because I want to clarify something. You're saying if a person discharged their firearm and they were not charged, they're having a harder time to retrieving their firearm? So
absolutely, because most police officers, I don't want to say most, but many police officers think that you need a court order. And there's not necessarily a court order needed. There are some forms that they can fill out in the station to release your firearm. But it's easier to tell you, oh, you need a court order, because then you go away. You'll leave, right? Hoping, and you call a lawyer, hey, I need to get a court order to get my firearm back. And I'm like, okay, well, what happened in court? I never went to court. What do you mean? I shot somebody. I never went to court, but they said I need a court order. But a judge won't necessarily give you, there's no case. So how do you get the court order?
So it's
but
really
if you're charged, you have
level.
a case.
Okay, so it's the local level.
Right.
Okay, so let me ask this other question. I want to follow up with something. So you talked about people that may be charged with the UUW. They have a concealed carry, they have a gun, but what about if they didn't receive their concealed carry in the mail as of yet? So they're riding dirty and they get charged with this UUW. Have you had any cases where while they're waiting, the judge or the arresting agent contacts the Illinois State Police to say this person is in the system, kind of waiting on approval, and then they deny the permit, which actually is plausible. It makes sense.
Well, I think I have not had a situation where they are waiting. I had a situation where the person was waiting to physically receive their card. Mm-hmm. They were approved. But I think that people have to recognize two things. The way that this law is written and the forms that you receive from the Illinois State Police and regarding your concealed carry is different from the way the police act when you're in it. Okay. So for instance, I had a client who he was actually charged with UUW. Reason being, he's in his car, he's driving, he's got the wrong conceal and carry license on him. He's got his expired license on him. The other one's in the mail, but it came, and I think he didn't grab the right one when he left for the day. So they still charged him with the UUW, even though they can look and they can see that his license was valid and his license was, that it had been extended to a later date and time, but he had the wrong license on him. Now, granted, the police could have taken a lot of different approaches to that. So part of it is, I'm going to say, going to depend on the officer you get. And the other part of it is probably going to depend on your attitude. But I think more of it is going to depend on the officer you get and whether or not they're knowledgeable. I've had officers that have charged my clients with UUW and their firearms in the trunk. So it depends on your officer.
And actually what we're telling our students, as long as they have taken the 3-hour renewal class and the information is under review and they've submitted it and they're waiting on the new permit to come in the mail, they're not supposed to be charged. But you're exactly right. I think the police are not very aware of what's in the concealed carry law. And so I tell people to print out the information, have it, don't argue with the police, but at least have that information, because it does say you could carry it even if it's expired while it's under review. And a lot of people don't know that, but we try to tell our students that all the time.
And you're exactly right. But the problem is, guess what? You're not coming to save them when the officer is coming to lock their butt up. And unfortunately, that's what they do. And the truth of the matter is this. When my license expired, my new one had not arrived. And I know that you can carry in between that gap period, especially because mine's expired right around COVID. Mm-hmm. And so I did not carry during that time because here's the thing. I know my rights, but I also know better, right? So it becomes a battle of, if today is the day I need to use it, or if today is the day somebody decides they want to illegally search my car for some crazy reason and then take me into custody. So because I know the practice of how this is done versus the actual law, you know, the law, unfortunately, we don't have the same rights as everybody else. So you have to be cognizant of that as you go about your daily life and realize that, guess what? My car can be searched even though it's illegal. You know, I can be arrested even though I've not done anything wrong. I could be charged for something I'm not guilty of, because that's just how we're treated. And so because I'm aware of that, I'm very cautious of all the things that I do.
Okay, that's a good point. That is a good point. And that is an individual decision, obviously. And as an attorney, you made that individual decision. I certainly will share that with our classes with the renewal, because I certainly don't want them to have a pissing contest with the police officer, because they're not going to win. They're just not. And it could be that bad day where something could go wrong. So let me ask this. Have you had any cases where people have brandished their guns, which we, of course, tell people, do not show anybody your gun. Nobody should know that you have a firearm. And I always say somebody could have a camera and call the police and say you brandished your firearm, which is illegal. So have you had any cases like that?
I had one a little while back, but that person was really a crazy circumstance. He didn't have a concealed carry. And until this day, I think this was a setup, okay? The friend says, and I'm sorry if you guys hear my dogs barking. The friend says, hey, hold my gun for me. Hold my gun for me. And conveniently, within 5 minutes, the police show up and arrest him. And so what happened, he had the gun out back and forth between pockets, front pocket, second pocket, top pocket, foolishness. And someone called the police, and the police pulled up and they locked his butt up. And so there are several 911 calls of saying, hey, oh my God, there's this guy, he's outside of my car, he's got a gun and that sort of thing. And he wasn't brandishing it to threaten the person. He was just goofy.
Yeah. And you shouldn't be showing your firearm. I mean, that's just the bottom line. So that is a good example where people shouldn't see your gun and somebody will call and you have no idea why somebody's calling the police. So have you had any convictions with concealed carry holders? Have you had any or heard of any, any case law where, because you really rarely hear about concealed carry holders being convicted in Illinois?
You know, because concealed carry is somewhat new in Illinois, that's why you don't have a whole lot of law regarding it. As far as conviction, I have a couple of charged people right now. Knock on wood, they won't be convicted, but they are charged. You know, they are charged with different offenses regarding concealed carry. Normally what happens is, if you have done something, they normally violate your concealed carry before it's like a conviction, if you will.
So when you say violate, confirm what you mean, or clarify what you mean by violate. I know what it means, but for the audience.
So you can be charged with violating concealed carry. So let's say, you know, you see that big sign in the door, hey, don't bring your gun in here. And you just decide, look, that walk to the car was far and I had to walk back twice. I had to put my mask on. So I'm just gonna run in. And now you run in, and for whatever reason, you know, someone becomes aware that you have your concealed carry. I'm sorry, your firearm on you. Now you've violated by taking it into that institution or that place. And, you know, they're going to, it's going to be I'll call it a ping against your concealed carry license. So remember,
will they
licenses
revoke
are
it?
a privilege.
Mm-hmm.
It depends on the circumstances. Usually I've seen that they'll give you two. And it depends on the circumstances. So it's difficult to say whether or not, first of all, you gotta be found guilty, right? Just because they're charged don't mean you'll be found guilty. So it could be a situation that hey, this person did violate, but the police violated their rights when they arrived. So it just depends on the circumstances. But yeah, they can revoke your concealed carry. In fact, I see concealed carries get revoked very often when someone is issued an order of protection. They will revoke your concealed carry and your FOID card when you are the defendant or respondent in an order of protection that has been issued.
Okay, so that's a good point. I'm glad you brought that up. Before I go to this next question regarding that, one of the attendees asked the question about, do you find that once they're taken into custody, are they issued a bond?
The ones that I have, because remember, a lot of concealed carry holders are not charged, okay? So the ones that I have had, they have received bonds. And then how do I want to word this? Most people won't have a background, but the bond is still going to depend on A, what did you do, right? What did you do? And B, do you now have a background? Do you have a background that perhaps you had your concealed carry and now you've got a conviction and now here you are with this other offense? So it's still going to solely be tied to your background. And now, Illinois and Cook, they're definitely moving away from cash bonds. They still have them. A lot of people are given house arrest, especially now because of COVID. But for the most part, most people are going to be given a bond, even if they don't have concealed carry. Even the people that I've had who have UUWs, no FOID, no concealed carry, just out here totally riding dirty, get bonds.
Okay. So let's go back to, thank you for that answer, Attorney Barlow. So let's go back to the orders of protection. So this is always a little confusing component. So if I take out an order of protection, I'm the legal gun owner, but I want to take out an order of protection against my neighbor that is harassing me. Are my rights going to be jeopardized? Will they take my firearm?
Say it again. Your neighbor is harassing you. You file a order of protection against your neighbor.
And the neighbor has concealed carry, so we know what happened to the neighbor's concealed carry. But I'm the one that is the victim, so I'm filing the petition.
No, so it's only going to have an effect on you if you're the respondent. If you're the respondent and that order of protection is issued against you, it will turn off your FOID. You're supposed to turn in your firearm to the local police. But sometimes people don't turn in their firearms. Sometimes I've heard that when the police come to serve you, if they have been told there's a firearm, then they will ask to retrieve the firearm from the house at that time. And I have been told that they have given their firearm to the police after they have been issued an order of protection. But I think everybody handles that differently.
So the actual victim would need to? That's interesting.
Not the victim, the defendant.
The defendant. Oh yeah, that makes sense. Yeah, that makes sense.
Defendant. No, but what I'm saying is not everyone turns their stuff in.
Oh, right. Yeah, we know that.
and remember something too. When I'm dealing with order of protections too, a lot of times it's not the neighbors, it's the boyfriend and girlfriend, the husband and wife, the kid and the parent.
That live in the same house.
Yes, yes. And so sometimes if there's one issued and you know your partner has a gun, hey, here's the gun, it's over here in the safe. And then the police will take it away. They'll make you open the safe and they'll take it.
Okay. All right. So we do have a question here, and I'm gonna let you answer this, but we know I pretty much know the answer to this. But did you see it from Kelly Davenport? So basically, what she's asking is, some places have the no firearm sign, but she's saying that they may not be among the entities where the law states is prohibited. But Kelly, any private citizen can put a sign up that says they don't want firearms in their establishment. Any business can as well. The legal entity I think you're talking about are like the post office, federal banks. They may not even have a sign. You just notice you can't go in there. But even if a sign is, if a regular business, Joe Blow, I could put a sign on my business and say no guns. Maria could put, Attorney Barlow could put a sign at her business as well. So Maria, do you want, Attorney Barlow, I'm sorry, do you want to add anything to that?
It's okay. Yeah, I would tell people, here's the thing, and this is something I tell my clients. If an attorney didn't tell you, don't believe it, okay? And so when you're out and about, some things are going to be common sense things, right? And perhaps when you are concealing and carrying and you see that sign that says no gun, right? And now you've heard that, and you've heard, hey, this says no gun, but my friend said, the neighbor said, that the uncle said, that the police said that I can carry in this business. That's not a risk you want to run. And here's why. It may not be, it may be a business that is a private business, like Javonda described, but it also may be a business that you forgot was on the list of specific businesses that you couldn't bring your firearm into. So I always err on the side of caution and don't do it. I'm going to give you a funny example. If you ever go to Jewel has a no gun sign, but it actually says at the bottom, it says for the store associates. So it's not applicable to everybody, but it's just for their associates. And that's the only place that I can recall in recent memory that says that you can basically conceal carry so long as you're not there working. So I'm always telling you, you always want to be mindful of the rules of the house, right? You can't go over your grandma's house and sit on her furniture because she said, no, you can't bring your gun into my business because I said so. So you want to follow those rules.
And also, I just want to add this as I get to some of the questions. Certain food stores may have a sign and some don't. So you just need to look at each store. We know all Targets don't have them, but not all Jewel have a sign. And I go to Jewel regularly, so I know which ones do and which ones don't. So you always want to just look at each individual store. So a couple of questions. One person is asking about a owner, and if a owner of a residential 2-flat actually can put a sign up. It says residential building owner putting a sign on their 2-flat after a lease is signed. Can they put a sign up? No firearm.
Owner can do whatever the owner wants to do. Guess what? This is my business. This is my business. Even a 2-flat, that's my business. That's where I make the rules there. It's mine, right? I think that if there's a lease and the owner has a reason why they're posting that, then it's a conversation that you probably want to have with that owner. I don't think in my instant, I haven't had this issue arise. So I'll say this as it relates to a 2-flat, because that's your abode, right? And you're leasing from there. For me, if that were me, I would have a conversation with the owner as to why they don't want firearms in the building. And then if there's just no meeting of the minds between you all, then you need to move. It might be, guess what? It might be targeted at you. They might want you out. And so you have to make a decision. Do I want to stay here without my gun, or do I want to move with my gun?
Good point. So question regarding law enforcement officials, have you heard of any law enforcement officials who have gone into an establishment, let's say, I don't know, the 50-yard line or the family den, a place where we know you're not supposed to have a firearm, but we know that people carry off duty. Law enforcement officers can carry their guns 24 hours a day. So have you heard of any law enforcement officers carrying into a business that had a no gun sign being charged?
I have not heard of any being charged. And remember, the police officers are not carrying under concealed carry. They have a license to carry, so it's substantially different. So even though we can't carry here and there and at most places, that's not necessarily applicable to police officers. Their rules are different. So don't confuse the concealed carry rules that you are supposed to abide by with that of your police officer friend. The other thing I will say is this. If you're a police officer and you work in Chicago, and you're at the 50-yard line, for some reason, there was not a shooting, but perhaps someone came across the fact that you had a gun, it's a good chance somebody not going to lock you up, and something's going to happen, and things are going to disappear. Now, if you are not supposed to have your gun and you kill somebody and the news is there and it's on video, different conversation. But I will most certainly tell you that you gotta have some friends if you the police and the police showed up. You gotta at least have a friend that can help you out.
Yeah, and some of those places probably want the police in there, but they don't want them in there drinking and and inebriated if a situation breaks out. So we understand
Absolutely.
why we don't want people to have guns in certain places. So one other question, we know, or we've heard about more recently about magazine capacity. So it's really interesting that we know in the state concealed carry curriculum, there's no mention of magazine capacity. However, Chicago and maybe the county, Cook County, may have a magazine capacity on record. I don't know how much it's enforced, but are you familiar with it? And have you had any cases where someone has said you had a magazine capacity over 15 rounds or over 10 rounds?
I have not. The closest thing that I had to that was someone having a magazine in their car. And they opened, what happened, the person got stopped and they went to reach for their insurance and they opened their glove box and I think their magazine fell out or was showing, the police saw it, whatever it was, and they were charged. But the reason that they were charged is because they didn't have a concealed carry. And the reason that was an issue was because that person was from Indiana and they did not require a concealed carry, but they were in Illinois, so they were still charged. And I don't know what happened with that case. That ended up not being a case that I took on, but I do remember that charge happened. The other thing is this. Oftentimes, when you deal with something like magazines and things like that, normally the question, my instant question is, how the hell did the police know what you had? Like, there had to be something that happened to get you to the police knowing that you had that. And so that's a for instance at which you've been involved in a shooting and now the police are taking you into custody. That might be a way at which they find out and then charge you. But for the most part, the police aren't going to just independently know that you are not properly carrying or you have too many bullets and that sort of a thing. Okay. But again, some based on the interaction of who, the police officer you meet. Some of that's going to be based on how's your attitude towards the police and what does this officer know regarding the law?
That's a good point. Very good point. So in our classes, we have a lot of, this comes up a lot where people have their legal concealed carry permit holder live in a home with someone that has a felony conviction. It could be a spouse, it could be a child. I know on the federal level, we saw family members be released to some police officers' homes, and the police had to make arrangements to say that my duty gun would be locked up, and we know police have their guns out, they should. So have you seen or had any cases where it's been a little quirky with constructive possession and what has happened?
I actually know of one very recently. The person, I'm gonna say this, if you know you live with a felon, you need to protect that person. You love that person, you need to protect that person. So you can't make any mistakes. You can't make a mistake and throw your gun in the glove box and let them borrow your car. You can't make a mistake and leave your gun out because it was drying and that person smoked weed and the neighbor hates y'all and the neighbor always calling the police. And now this particular day, the police see the gun on the couch. You have to go above and beyond to protect your loved one. So in the situation that I most recently know about, the person, I don't remember if the person's a felon. I believe that the person is a felon, but the person doesn't have a concealed carry, doesn't have a FOID, and borrowed the friend's car. Driving along, get stopped for whatever, and the police see the gun. And so now that person's charged with UUW, right? Even though it's a proper concealed carry holder, but that concealed carry holder wasn't around. And it's not up to you to the charge, it's not up to you as it relates to the charges that are brought against you and things like that. That's one of those things that you hope that you can work with the state to figure out what's what. But unfortunately, that person's charged. That person is now fighting a felony UUW case because the concealed carry holder did not do their due diligence in making sure to protect their loved one from the police. I can tell you what, The other thing is this: you're riding the car, you don't have your concealed carry license on you, your gun's out. They're gonna try to charge the felon with the gun, felon in possession, because that's a good charge. You know, that's a high charge for somebody. And so I always tell people this: you have to do your due diligence. You have to protect the people you love. And even if you have kids and things like that, guess what? I don't care how good your kid is, how great your kid is, lock your firearm up. These kids are always wanting to experiment and experience and things like that. And I think one of the things that we do as mostly African American families, I see a lot of times we don't talk to our kids about guns. A lot of times it's a taboo thing, and we tell our kids to stay away from guns, don't touch guns, don't touch guns. And so if you have kids in your house, talk to them. If you feel like you don't have the knowledge to do it, guess what? JMD, they have the class. They got a class for it. So because it's important and people don't do it. Since my son was like 10, I always talk to him. Hey, son, are you interested in a Ford car? Are you interested in learning about guns? Are you interested in seeing my gun? Do you want to see your dad's gun? Because he needs to know. So when he is offered, he's not feeling like, oh, this is something mom told me I could never touch or do. Let me see what this is about. Let me go do something illegal. When he doesn't need to do that. The moment he wants his Ford, he can get his Ford. Any education he needs, we can go get it for him. When it's time for him to conceal carry, he ain't got a choice. He getting his license because he may want to conceal carry one day.
That's a good point. And I'm glad that you are embracing firearms with your child and teaching your child early on about firearms and to respect the gun. What's really interesting is that in our communities, we've really vilified firearms. We don't really talk about them enough, and our kids are curious. And so I'm glad that you're doing that and kind of modeling that behavior. Something you said a little while ago in this discussion right now, you mentioned they saw the firearm. So where were the guns? They were just sitting on the seat in the car. Like, how did the police see the firearm? That's what's kind of interesting to me.
If memory serves me correctly, it was either in the armrest or in the glove box. It was somewhere, though, that was conveniently located for them to see it.
Okay. And maybe when they reached for the license or registration, they saw it in the glove box. But I'm glad you mentioned that example, and it's a great one to give us because we have to protect the felon. We know we'll get charged on some level. Maybe our permit will be violated on some level and we'll get a ding. But that felon is the one that has signed a piece of paper that says, I will never possess a firearm unless they get a presidential pardon. And that's the part that people don't understand. And I'm so glad you stressed that they have to go above and beyond to protect. We can't help that we have family members that may have a felony conviction. So I'm so grateful that you said that. So we have a question here of some of the common gun charges you've mentioned. On average, what does it cost someone to defend themselves? And this is a good segue to talk about how I found you. I put on Facebook and asked last year, does anyone know an attorney that represents concealed carry permit holders? And Attorney Barlow was recommended. People mentioned her name. And then it just so happened that she is a United States Concealed Carry Association attorney on their list of attorneys. So if you want to talk about what it might typically cost if someone doesn't have self-defense insurance, and then, of course, you are on that list and you can expound on that a little bit.
Okay, so yeah, if you're going to conceal carry, get the insurance. If not, don't conceal carry. Somebody asked, what does it cost? A lot, right? It costs a lot, okay? Normally, I will say that first you got to worry about your bond, okay? Most people want to get out more than they want a lawyer. Most people. Now, I could be wrong, but most people want to get out more than they want to get an attorney. I would say if you don't have any background and this is your first offense, you might be able to get somewhere between $5,000 and $15,000 for the attorney's fees. But depending on if there has to be some experts and things like that, those costs can go up. But when it comes to concealed carry, it's just like a car. Guess what? Don't drive if you ain't got no insurance. Something may happen. It may not be you that started it, right? You can't control somebody whipping around that corner and running to the back of you. Just like you can't control someone coming to try to attack you or someone you love, and you have to shoot them. So don't run the risk. The insurance is worth it. You can pick, I'm on the list. You can pick any attorney you want. What becomes important is this. And even though I'm on the USCCA list, I'm on some other lists too, but I like USCCA, and here's why. If USCCA calls me right now, we're gonna end this program because I need to get to the police station. One thing I know USCCA is going to pay. They're going to pay for their client's defense. They're going to overnight me a check. If I tell whatever I tell them the amount is, if it's within the insurance, they're going to overnight me a check. Now, for people who don't have the insurance, they're going to call, and I'm going to probably chill until somebody ready to meet me at about 87th or 95th and Stony or State or somewhere that I feel like driving to get their money. And that's assuming they can pull the money together tonight to get me to go to the station. Because normally when you go in the station, you could be in there 2 hours, you could be 10. And so I'm not going to go for $500. You're going to need a few people to go to the ATM for you if you don't have cash on hand. So, and I'm also not going to answer at 3 o'clock in the morning. You're going to be waiting until about 9 or 10 when I get up and finish court. And then I try to see if I can meet your cousin to get the payment. When you have insurance, it's different because we know that we're going to be paid. We know that we're not going to pull up and they're like, oh, I got half of it. I don't play that. I will leave and go back home and get back undressed and get back in the bed and throw the ball with my dog. And so it's important. It makes a difference. The other good thing about the insurance is this. They pay your bond. If there's a bond that must be paid, they pay the bond. The third good thing is they will also cover you if you're sued. Let's say somebody, whatever happens, they decide to sue you civilly. They will cover that as well. So it becomes important to make sure you have that insurance because you don't know what somebody else's day was like. And so you don't know how their day may change your day and could change the trajectory of your life, quite frankly. So you want to be prepared for that. Super important.
I remember when you talked to our gun club, and of course, the ladies of steel and the men of steel get a discount with the USCCA. But I remember you saying that if people want to find any other kind of insurance that they're interested in, make sure that it's not reimbursable because most of us don't have that money just sitting around in an account to pay an attorney. So I can't imagine people not getting the insurance because it's not very expensive and you can add your spouse on. I get nothing from this. I'm just saying it's something I believe in. And I was so happy to find somebody on the South Side that looks like us, that is an attorney, and you can use any attorney you want. But I'm just grateful that we met Attorney Barlow, and she specializes in a lot of ways with these cases. So don't get my cousin Vinny that went to law school and they don't know what they're doing and they may not believe in the Second Amendment. So it's 6:48. As we start wrapping up, I do want to mention one other question that's in here, and then I do want to ask you if you have some best advice for concealed carry holders as we wrap up. But one of the questions is, so where exactly should your firearm be while you're in the car if it's not on your person? I'm going to add that piece. If you're not carrying it on your body, where else should it be?
Here's the thing. They carjacking like crazy in Chicago, right? So if you think you might be able to draw from your trunk quicker than them pulling up, some of this is preference, okay? I would say on your person, right? Because you need to be able to draw it very quickly. But the opposite of that is you have the police officer that may pull you over. And, I wouldn't advise you reach for your firearm. We all watch the news. We all know what it is, right? And so I wouldn't advise that you reach for it. You want to ask them how you want to proceed. You're going to be treated differently than the videos that you probably see in your concealed carry classes. You're going to be treated different than the videos you see on YouTube because you are a person more than likely of color with a gun on you. And the police are not used to seeing you. Oh, she's saying if you take it in the store, if you can't take it in the store, get you a lockbox and lock your firearm up.
And it should be in
And
the
make
trunk.
sure, yeah, and make sure that you are locking it up appropriately. Because guess what? People get guns different ways. You don't want them to end up with yours. So while you just run in to get a little eggs and bacon, somebody may, oh, was that a gun? Did I just see a gun? So you want to be prepared for that. If I know that I'm running in the store, but in the most part, I know what stores I'm going to go into. So I know kind of what the rules are, you know. So if you're just going to run into the store, I'm going to already be prepared for that. So I'm going to already have my firearm where it's properly supposed to be. And then I'm going to run into the store. When I put my bags in the trunk, then I may, you know, make that transition. And now I'm heading home or wherever I'm going. But I'm going to try to take care of the things I need to take care of before I get to the store.
That's a good point. And definitely the glove box is not a recommended location for your gun, because that's the first place people go to when they are breaking into a car. And the trunks are much more secure, and you should have a lockbox. You can get those on Amazon.
Right.
Any parting words, any advice for our attendees?
Definitely get the concealed carry insurance that covers the payment to the attorney. Okay, because guess what? I always say that we live in Chicago, though, so you just never know. But a lot of times when somebody shoots somebody, it's at night, and most attorneys are sleeping. So you want to have somebody in mind already that you know is going to come out to the station for you. I know with USCCA, they have rapid response team, and I'm on the rapid response team, which means that we're on call 24/7. So if somebody shoots somebody now at 3 in the morning, 5 in the morning, 6 in the morning, whatever time, day or night, we are on call and they will call for you. You want to make sure you do not give a statement under any circumstance to the police. You know, it always sounds good, but it's not a good idea. If you shoot somebody, call your insurance. If you're going to call the police, that's fine. But call your insurance, make sure that you have an attorney that's going to come out to the station for you. And then you could alert your loved ones too, because everybody is used to having instant access to everybody. So after like 8 minutes and you haven't responded to a call or a text, you know, people start to go crazy. But you also want to have somebody that knows what's going on, because sometimes it's difficult for me to find a person. Sometimes someone tells me, oh, there was a shooting at this place, or I got a call before there was a shooting at the beach. So now I'm trying to figure out which of these freaking beaches was the shooting at, so I can try to figure out where my client was. And I needed to talk to somebody in the family because USCCA did not have all the information. So you want to make sure that you have somebody in your family that's in mind, that's responsible, and that can work with the attorney for any background information and things like that that may be necessary. Or guess what? People have health issues. You want to make sure that somebody can bring you your medication and things like that to the station, because you can plan on being there for a while. What else? Only pull your firearm if you absolutely have to. Remember that just because you've taken a class, you know, you may have taken 1 or 2 classes, you want to continue to make sure that you're training. You know, I know Javangelish, they offer a lot of classes. Look into those classes. Make sure that you're prepared if this happens to you, because these people that are out carjacking and doing this stuff, today not their first day, okay? Today might be your first day in action. You might have had your concealed carry for a while, but they've been doing this and they got some experience. And so you want to be mindful of that. The other thing is, don't be the hero, just be alive, okay? Just be alive. If they're going to take your car and you got your concealed carry, let them have your car. You still got your life. Okay, you know, people make the mistake. I have a client who, concealed carry holder, 4 guys came and they all had guns and he slugged it out and he didn't live to tell the tale. Mm-hmm. He was killed. Don't be the hero. Just be alive. Just be alive to tell the tale. What else? Talk to your family. Talk to your family. Make sure, especially if you have kids and if you have partners, add them to your insurance. That's important too, because it does cover them with firearm incidents. I have a case right now where the partner was involved and USCCA covered it. even though that person is a felon.
Wow. Very
Yeah.
interesting. I do know that they cover spouses. And when you're saying legal partners, if somebody lives with someone, they don't have to be married.
No, this was a husband. The wife was a concealed carry holder. The husband was actually a felon, but USCCA covered the husband's case.
Because she had him listed on the insurance as the second individual. Yep.
Mm-hmm.
So Maria, this has been Attorney Barlow. I'm sorry. This has been
okay.
very enlightening as usual. You have great information. I love how you keep it real, and you've given people a good blueprint what to do and what not to do. And it's just been very, very helpful for our gun club and other participants that are on here. And certainly I know one of my instructors is on here listening, and so we'll definitely be able to take this information back. If you can put your information, your contact information in the chat for individuals, just so that everybody knows, you will get an evaluation and a follow-up email, and Maria Barlow's information will be in that email as well as mine as well. But we want to put yours in here. You can just drop it in right now and people can get in touch with you during the work week. And hopefully they don't need you, but if they need you, at least they have you in their Rolodex, I guess you could say.
It's true. Yeah.
Yeah, just you want to have an attorney that does this kind of work if you need it. And if nothing else, look up the United States Concealed Carry Association. If you're in the gun clubs, you get a discount. There's no excuse for you to not sign up. But if you're not in the gun clubs, it's USCCA, United States Concealed Carry Association. They have a wealth of information. They send out videos, they send a magazine. Once you sign up for the insurance, you become a member, and they have an app that you can download. I just can't say enough about how wonderful that insurance is and how comprehensive it is. So Maria Barlow, yes.
Let me tell you this too. And I don't know if they still have it, but I know that at one point or another too, USCCA had what's called a gun trust. And what happened is, because they got tired of spending money trying to fight for people to get their guns back, they would actually just pay for you to get another gun.
I'll look into that.
Taking your gun. I don't know if they still have that, because I haven't had that happen in a couple of years. But I know that at some point they did have that. The other thing I want to say is this, and I know we have to go. If you have teenagers, boys and girls, right? Because we watch the news, we know girls are into it too now. Get them a FOID card. Get them a FOID card. There are different levels of being charged with the UUW. If you have your FOID, it's a misdemeanor. If you don't, it's a felony. And so guess what? When you out getting them all that stupid stuff, they be wanting iTunes cards and stuff like that, drop them on by the passport picture place, get them a FOID card.
And we process FOID cards for our clients if they have teenagers in the homes, and I am a notary, and I can notarize the form, and it's not very difficult to do. As long as the parent is eligible to get a FOID card, you can get one for your child. My daughter has had one since high school. And I will say this as we wrap up, it is a good piece of ID for a young person. If they get stopped by the police and they just so happen to know that they have this FOID card, think about it from this standpoint. They realize that this family went that extra step for firearm responsibility. So we don't know how things will shake out in any kind of police stop, but it's not looked upon in an unfavorable manner, because their other families have been taking their kids to the range for years, and they've had FOID cards for years. We just need to get on board with that with our families and our kids. And Maria, Mrs. Maria Barlow, thank you so much. And until the next time. And thank you everybody for joining us. And this is recorded, and we will certainly share this on our social media platforms.
Well, thank you again for having me, and thanks everybody for coming out.
Thank you. Thank you. Take care.